Okay. Here we are again. Back in this thing. So, the law of the day, or the daily law, that I read in my book was titled something to the effect of get to the center. And the way he explained that is when people ask him what it takes to attain mastery, the phrase that enters his mind is get into the center. And what he means by that is in order to understand a thing, you can't, and especially if you want to become a master at it, like a task or a skill or whatever it is, you can't do that from the outside. You have to get to the center. You have to enter into it. And the example he gives is that once you're in the middle of something, you see it from a perspective of intimate distance. Right? Let's take a relationship for an example. You first see somebody from a distance, and what attracts you is the look of it, right? But a lot of the times when you get close enough to the person, you may find out that who they are isn't as attractive as how they looked. And that can ruin the whole thing. You know, that can bring the clarity of mind for you to be like, yeah, this is not for me. Same goes for like a skill or a task or a job. You know, oh, I'd love to be, say, a lawyer or a doctor, you know, or something high level. You know, the look of it may be, you know, great. But once you get on the inside and you see the amount of work it takes to get to that level that you were fantasizing about, you know, not everybody's up for the amount of work it takes to reach mastery. So once you get to the inside, your whole mindset might change. A lot of people want the quick and easy route. And that's one thing this book stresses, his book on mastery anyways, is there is no quick and easy route to master level status at anything. It's sports, you know, that for me it's Kobe. That Kobe level of mastery. For other people it'd be Jordan, or Steph, whoever, whatever other sport. You know, I guess this new generation it'd be Stephen Curry. So that was the law of the day. Got to see it from the inside. And I guess maybe to dovetail that into what's going on in current events and news around the world. You know, everybody's having their opinion on all these different conflicts that are taking place around the world. Again, we're on the outside. We're seeing it from here in America. And we're only seeing it from the perspective they're giving us. Right? So we are very much on the outside, and there is absolutely no way we can get into the inside of the issue for us to really understand what's going on, and for any of us to have an honest opinion on any of these conflicts that are taking place. So here's an example of me actually being able to attain the inside was with COVID. So early on, when we first started hearing about COVID-19, I know I've talked about this before, but this fits the topic perfectly, so I'm going to say it again. The streams of information that were given to the general population were different from the streams of information that I was getting. So I've always been a bit of how to explain this? Even when it was like, when it came to like computers and stuff, I was the guy that can get the things that no one else could get. I was a bit of a, I wasn't pirating myself, but I knew where to get the pirated stuff, you know? If you wanted the copy of the movie that was in the theater, oh, I could get it. And I was getting good copies. I was getting the screeners that they would send out. So when it came to information, I just happened to be in loop with the information streams that would be considered the Pirate Bay of information, let's just say. And while they were telling people it was just a natural spillover, a natural viral spillover from a bat that just happened to jump species and now it's affecting humans, the information I was reading was very much different. The information I was reading was about the level 7, I believe it was, virology center in Wuhan, and how they were tinkering with coronaviruses, and that's what they were known for. And that's where it originated. And right off the bat, they did say it originated in China, in Wuhan. So I knew they were telling you half the truth. They just weren't giving you the other half that I was getting, and that's because I was in the center. I was closer to the center than everybody else when it came to that. Same thing with 9/11, really. You know, even though people still, for the most part, believe it was the planes that caused those collapses. You still ask people today about Building 7, and most people won't know what you're talking about. I've actually asked people to this day if they knew there was a third building that fell, and they'll still kind of look at me confused, like, what? I'm like, yeah. And then I'll have to explain the whole thing. So it's still kind of interesting that after all these years, you know, some information still hasn't reached people, and that's what's keeping them on the outside and away from the center of truth, really, or accuracy in terms of information. Let me see, how could I personalize this? Okay. In my former life, when I was married, there was a circle of information that I was on the outside of. So I didn't know I was getting cheated on. And there was a whole circle of information going around that people knew about that I did not. And it took one person to inform me about what was going on the inside. If you think about it, the whole analogy of getting to the center it fits on every level. Like, even if you take the action of like a revolving wheel, right? The center of a revolving object, let's just say like the tires on my car right now, like the very dead center barely even seems to move. The inertia is always towards the outside. That's what's really spinning around like really fast, just to get to the same point, because the amount of distance it has to travel is much further than the very dead, like I'm talking like needle pinpoint center of the hub of my wheel as it spins. You know, it's revolving at the same 360 degrees. Since the radius isn't as, and the circumference isn't as large, the speed of that rotation, it doesn't have to be as fast. But the outside of this tire has to spin quick. So even getting to the center of a rotating object seems to calm things down, seems to slow things down. I even talked about that too in my daily law when it came to sports. Once an athlete reaches what they call, like that zone, that's because they're inside of the game so much that it seems to them like everything slows down. Past this truck. I hate having to move quickly because it wastes gas, but this guy is driving like he's never driven before. But yeah, that's what they've said. I've heard a lot of athletes say that. Like when they're in the middle of a move or a play, especially fast moving sports. I would assume hockey's one of them, but I've heard basketball players say this. Like it just seems like everything's slowed down. I experience this actually quite often when I'm working with dogs and there's a fight that breaks out. I've broken up so many fights. It just seems like everything slows down when I'm doing what I'm doing. When I'm separating dogs and I'm having to like handle the ones that are actually engaged in a fight. When it comes to separating those two, I have to move very quickly because what I'm doing is I'm, with an open hand like a claw, I'm kind of poking at them with the tips of my fingers, and it has to be a little rough because they're in a fight, so they have to feel that what I'm doing is necessary to react to, because they're still wanting to react to each other, and I want them to lose focus on each other, and the only way to do that is to give them a physical sensation strong enough for them to forget what they're engaged in and re-engage in whatever just touched them, which is me. And a lot of the times their reaction to that touch when I do touch them is to bite. So I have to jab at them with my hand. Again, it's an open hand, and it's like all 5 fingertips that I'm like, kind of like a claw. It's all 5 fingertips that I'm kind of jabbing them and then moving them away with. And I have to do that knowing they're going to try to bite me. And normally it's only the first time that, just out of blind reaction, they turn and try to bite. But once they see me, it kind of doesn't happen again. But I have to jab at them and move my hand out of the way, knowing that a bite's coming. And the first time I did it, I didn't even think about it. I just kind of did it. And it wasn't until after that I kind of analyzed what it was that I did and how I did it. But seeing it from the outside, it must look like a chaotic mess. But from the inside, everything's moving down. It's actually like I'm watching myself do it in my mind. It's not like I'm actually there mentally. It's an odd mental dynamic. It's like you're watching yourself do it. It's really strange. It's like you're in the third person perspective, watching from the inside of your mind, watching yourself do whatever it is you're doing. I would imagine that might be how an athlete might see himself, especially a martial artist or any kind of fast moving sport. But yeah, that's what I imagine getting to the inside of something is. And me working with dogs, I've done that so often. That's how I process it with dogs. Now, how could this apply to life? That's the question that just popped into my head as I'm saying this. Like this can apply to, instances like working with dogs or playing a sport. But this has to apply also on the grand scheme of life. So I'm trying to see how that could happen. You know, you have to be on the inside. I guess this is how it could be. This is how it could work. You know, a lot of what life throws at you is designed to not have you concentrating too much on your life. You know, with all the different forms of media and entertainment that we have coming at us to occupy our time when we're not working. You know, there's another way that our time is occupied is through work. And especially if you're not engaged in a career that you absolutely love, then it's just kind of work. You know, if you're an artist and that's what you've always wanted to do, or if you're one of those professional athletes that always wanted to do that, then chances are you're at a job that you never quite wanted to do, but you're just doing because it brings in the money. So really, all these distractions are keeping you from getting and thinking from the center of your own life, really. So you can analyze what's going on calmly. You know, a lot of life has us in fight or flight mode. That's like survival mode. You never really get any rest period for you to gather all the information from the day and analyze so you can, you know, re-engage the next day from a calmer perspective. Right away, you get back into fight or flight. You know, even driving to work, like right now, I'm on the road with all these other people. A little bit ago, there was a guy in a big box truck, you know, one of these huge Penske box trucks, delivering something, but he's weaving into my lane. I see him a little bit ahead of me in my lane, and then he's going back into the other lane. And even then, it's like fight or flight. I have to figure out how to navigate around this guy's chaoticness just so I can have a calm ride to work. You know? Same with when all of you guys go to work out there. You know, not everybody's has the luxury of working with people they enjoy working with. And sometimes there's combative working relationships that you have to deal with. Even then, it's like fight or flight. You know, there's always a small level of cortisol dripping into your system. And for anybody that doesn't know, that's the stress hormone. You know, so there's always this constant small level of stress that's in the background noise of your mind. And that's what keeps you from having any kind of clarity and pure thought from a position of calm, you know, tranquil neutrality, really. Because you want to be in a neutral position for you to be able to act organically, is the phrase that just came to mind. Because if you think about it, you know, if you have this small level of stress always going on, you know, even the smallest thing you can have an unbalanced reaction to. You know, someone asks, you know, you're already stressed out and you go to work and you're thinking about the stresses in your life, and someone asks you, hey, how are you? You know, and right away, even that's an inorganic response, because you shouldn't be stressed, but right away your response is stressed. You know, the tone of voice, you know, your body language, you feel all tense. And that's because they're keeping you from that calm center of that revolving wheel that is your life. They want you on the outside where everything's blurring by as quickly as possible so you don't have time to think. And I guess that's why I act like a goofball a lot of the times. That's why I enjoy this crazy tinfoil hat information. It doesn't, I think a lot of the people that I tell this stuff to, I think it stresses them out. So maybe I should stop doing that. Especially the guy I work with. But for me, it's just entertainment. Because I've gotten used to it. See, that's what it is. See, there it is again. Once you get used to being on the inside, things calm down. Things slow down. And it gives you time to approach it with a different mental mindset. And for me, when it comes to the chaos in the world, I find humor in it. Just think it's funny. That's why I'm always throwing popcorn emojis into the comments section. I'm just here, being entertained by this chaotic mess that they want you to be stressed out about. I guess that's a small level of being black-pilled, but there's a healthy version of the black pill. Especially when it's like, I'm not gonna stress out about this. Oh, there's a virus going around, everybody has to get a shot? Nope, just not gonna do it, and I'm not gonna stress out about it. I'm just gonna take whatever it comes, even if that means death. I know somebody listening to this right now might be like, yeah, but you could have died if it was as bad as they said. Yeah, I could have died. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with my death. I've come to accept it. It's the natural conclusion to life. Why am I going to stress out about that no matter how it comes? I could die right now on the way to work. That could happen. You know, someone in one of these other cars who's taken the jab could have a huge blood clot let loose. They can go into cardiac arrest. They can crash into me, which would cause me to crash and die. That could happen. I'm not going to stress out about it. Just react when the time comes. I'm not going to stress until stress is needed. Right? See, there's a healthy reason why cortisol and fight and flight kick in. You know, it is the mechanism of self-preservation. But it shouldn't be engaged 24/7. You shouldn't have that in your mind 24/7. That's unhealthy. In my mind, that's what causes cancer. Constant stress. And it just manifests differently in different people. That's what's cancerous. The constant level of fight or flight that's being pushed into your mind through stress in the news, through all this toxic gossip in the media with like celebrity news and all that BS. You know, it's funny. I find it funny that people find that stuff entertaining, like all the celebrity gossip. That's what they're in the comments section with their popcorn emojis over. Is like celebrity BS. Ooh, did you hear this person did this? Or ooh, did you hear this person cheated on this person? Or this person said this about this person? I don't care. I don't care about these people. I find that useless. At least the stuff I come across has the capacity to touch me. Perfect example, COVID and the jab. This was going to affect me. Matter of fact, it did. I got fired from my job. So at least I better know what's real and what's not. I better get to the inside of this so I can know what's really going on. And I did. You know, even like some people might say, well, yeah, well, sports doesn't cause you stress. It does if you take it serious. I've seen people come to work stressed talking about how their team lost. And they're like, ah. I'm like, what? And I get it. You know, I used to be into sports. See, I'm on the outside. See, once I've been on the inside, if you move back to the outside of a thing after being on the inside, you have a different perspective. Because I used to be a huge Laker fan. Back in the Kobe days, in the Phil Jackson coaching days, that was my Laker heyday. You know, I got to see all those championships manifest. That was amazing, and I loved it. But prior to the Kobe days, I was a Laker all through the 90s. When we were losing. So I know what it's like to feel a little bit down and stressed because your team lost. I get it. But then I was able to see us win. So I experienced that also. And now that I have zero interest in it, really, I'm just neutral on the whole situation. I have no feelings about it either way. Even if the Lakers won today, I guess I would still consider that to be my team. But yeah, I'd be just like, yeah, that's cool. But I wouldn't like feel anything over it. So I guess all this ties into just mental mastery. You know, when it comes to a skill or a task, you have to master your mind enough to even venture on to the inside of it, so you can get to the underbelly. You know, it's like popping open the hood and seeing how your car really works. And once you do, you know, it looks pretty complicated underneath there. I don't know if I want to, you know that anymore, or be a part of that anymore. And for those who have the mental resilience, they'll push forward. Those are the ones that start tinkering under the hood. All right, let's see how this really works. Let's get in here and mess with all the parts. But not everybody has that in them. You know what? Let me take that back. Everybody has that in them. They just haven't found the thing that activates that level of interest for them to really metaphorically want to get under the hood. I think everybody does have that in them. They just might not have found what it is that lights that little fire in them yet. And that's because their life has, the mechanics of their life has overtaken them. They haven't been able to step back and prioritize what is needed in order for them to live the life that they actually want. Instead of having to live, instead of having the need to be what they are to live the life they currently have. Like me and my job, I enjoy the job. Is it what I always wanted to do? No. You know, I don't think anybody ever wanted nobody ever as a little kid made that birthday wish like, man, I wish one day I could work on a production line at a medical device company one day. That's my dream. Nobody says that. The dream was the person that wanted to create the medical device I'm working on. That's the dream. And they made it come true. And chances are they did that by not listening to anybody. Because imagine way back in the day before this device was invented, somebody saying, I'm going to create a little device that's surgically implanted into somebody that gives them their hearing back. Excuse me. That gives them back their hearing. People would have said, then you're crazy. Or, how about way back in the day? Back in the day of rotary telephones and a busy signal. That was a long time ago. I bet if somebody said, I'm going to re-engineer the phone, and one day it's going to be a little device that I can talk to, and not only can someone hear me, someone's going to be able to see me. Not only that, all the world's information is going to be accessible through this phone. Back in the day of the rotary phone, everybody would have said, you're crazy. Or, last example, I want to invent a device that allows man to fly in the air like a bird, so that one day we could fly over the ocean to other continents instead of having to take a boat. You're crazy. That's what all the inventors and all the outliers of the world have heard. That's all they hear is you're crazy. That's because they're on the outside. They're not seeing it from the inside like the outliers do. And normally being able to see something from the inside inside just means you have a level of access to information that the layman does not. I take it this truck is pulling into the scales because he's doing 40 miles an hour. All right. So yeah, I guess as I approach my exit, the message of the day is try not to judge from the outside. Instead, try to get to the inside first. Get a good feel for what's going on, which takes a lot of time. Don't make snap judgments once you get there. Stay there for a while and see if you can gain the perspective from the inside first. Then, if you want to step back onto the outside and start judging and giving your opinion, then you can do it. You know, this applies to politics, this applies to religion, this applies to everything. You know, even the topic of the day with the Jays. I'll just say that. You know, it's easy to judge them. They don't help with how they behave and the things that they teach. But I guess maybe if you step on the inside and you gain a little bit of their perspective, you at least may still not agree with who and how they are, but at least you would gain a perspective that would make you understand why they behave the way they do. Doesn't justify it. I've said this about Hitler and got into a lot of trouble, but got a lot of weird looks. I always say it this way: if it's gonna sound horrible, if you lived Hitler's life. Now remember, with this thought experiment, you have to actually assume that you are Hitler. You have to get into the side of Hitler. But again, this is getting on the inside. If you were born Hitler and you grew up thinking how Hitler thinks, and if you experienced the things that Hitler experienced, if you saw the things he saw, if you just processed it exactly, neuron for neuron, the way Hitler processed his life growing up, you would understand why Hitler said and did the things he did. It doesn't justify it. It doesn't make it okay, but it does give you an understanding as to how someone becomes that person. This goes for everybody, really. The worst serial killer, you know, the Jeffrey Dahmers and the whoever else. If you grew up exactly like them, like if you grew up them, there is no other road than the road that they ended up on. It's just the way it is. But you have to have the ability to step out of your mind and place yourself inside the mind of another. You have to have that ability. And I think that is sorely lacking in today's society. Nobody has the ability to put their own ego aside and for one moment think from inside the other person's mind. I think that's the cause of all the problems in the world, really. Everybody's so ego-centered, they can't imagine anything other than being who they are and thinking how they think and living how they live. And that's how you end up othering people. So, I guess I'll leave it at that. It's time for me to go inside. Go have some caffeine because I forgot to drink my drink on the way to work. Alright. Try to move from the outside to the inside. Try and see it from that pinpoint of the revolving wheel that's spinning. Get to the inside where it's barely even moving. So you can calmly assess the situation and see which way to move and navigate. All right, let's get to work.